Hey everybody, this is the Genesee County Compassion Club Show. I'm your host Jeremy, back in the studio here at allpointstv.com. How's everyone doing today? It's an excellent day here. Finally getting some rain. John,
you like that rain?
Yes.
You got a garden.
Yes.
Okay. To me, it's like an annoyance, but you're a gardener, so
it's going to be getting hot. So they say this weekend. So the rain is very welcome right now. Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the past few days. It was actually kind of cool and really comfortable. I mean,
very nice.
It was always beautiful.
70 degrees, sunny, is gorgeous.
We can't complain so far about the summer.
Good start to the summer, absolutely. Of course, that's John behind the camera, the man who makes things happen here at All Points TV. Got to give him props for making it happen here. Appreciate it, John. Got some marijuana news I want to share with you today. Let you know what's going on in the cannabis communities across the nation. Also let you know what's happening down at the Genesee County Compassion Club. We got a lot going on, all right? It's, like I said, a beautiful summer. It's absolutely gorgeous. And we got lots of fun activities happening down at the G3C. Got a full, delicious menu happening right next door at the Growing Concern. And, of course, all the fun and game activities that you could ever want, really. Come on in and check it out. But we do have some cool events coming up here. I want to share with you guys. First event on my mind, of course, is the 710 party. And I thought that this incredible looking mosaic background that I have going on here, what did you guys call it? You had a word for that besides kaleidoscope? I forget. Anyways, to me it looks like a sort of like a artsy dab. Yeah? What do you think? All right, dab. Anyways, 710 party. That's why I'm thinking about that. We got the 710 party coming up here, of course, on 710 at the G3C, going on all day long. We're starting at 11 a.m. Almost said p.m. 11 a.m. We got B-Dogs. Everybody loves the hot dog cart man coming out here. It's going to be music, fun times, good times. We got prizes, games, all of the things you'd expect. It's going to be an epic party. There's no additional cost. You just got to be a member. So come on in, 710. It's going to be a blast. Mark your calendars and try to remember. All right, try to remember.
Sorry, I was just stepped away. Did you say something to me, or?
Oh no, I was just making a comment about the background here, John. You had a word for it to describe it. I forget what it was.
Like a well, you said it's psychedelic, but
yeah, psychedelic. But
I forget what I said about it. My memory's short. You know, I just turned 55. You know,
John
the memory's already gone.
He does not medicate.
It's a good thing I don't. I would never get dressed, you know, and walk around all the house all day. You know.
Right on. Cool. Well, that's basically. I want to remind you guys about the 710 party. Of course, we have coming up here. After that is the Soup Kitchen. It's the third Tuesday of every month, serving down at the North End Soup Charities. Mark your calendars for that as well, please. All right, we have some. Oh, sorry, I pounded the desk, John. Sorry.
That's all right. Some people just use it sounds like a bongos in there.
Yeah. Gotta be careful here. Sound is sensitive. All right, I have some news I want to share with you guys. Let you know what's happening across the nation. It's been an exciting time for marijuana, medical and recreational, of course, and big things happening, big changes happening. It's amazing all the changes that are occurring, and it seems to be, on one hand, incredibly fast-paced as things come up on a daily basis, and on the other hand, it's incredibly gruelingly slow. For a substance that's benign, never hurts anybody, it's clearly used for medicinal purposes. It's neat to see the advancement, but it's also, on one hand, on the other hand, it's kind of like get with the program. So finally, today what I want to share with you is somebody got with the program. One of the most harsh states ever in the United States. This place here, if you got popped with marijuana, good luck. I mean, the place is worse than getting caught in a foreign prison. Oklahoma is what I'm talking about. Their cannabis laws down there are incredibly strict. They're just having a overall astounding reputation for being incredibly harsh on cannabis consumers down there. Regardless of the situation. And I remember sharing a story on this podcast here a few years ago about a young woman who was caught with one marijuana cigarette, and she spent, I'd have to go back and look to be sure, but I think she spent nearly a year behind bars. And I know that's similar to like the story we talk about here in Michigan back in the day, one of our pioneers, one of our heroes, John Sinclair, getting popped for a joint. And this story I was sharing with you about Oklahoma, that was like 2 years ago. So incredibly harsh state. They finally got together, gave it to their voters, and the voters passed it. They are now going to have medical marijuana in Oklahoma. So that's a big advancement. One of the neat things about their law that they passed was basically it says doctors need to make recommendations just like they do here in Michigan, but they did not put any limitations on what people could qualify for. So essentially, if a physician feels that cannabis would be beneficial to your health for any purpose, really, and they're willing to make that recommendation, then you would qualify for it in Oklahoma. So that's pretty cool, pretty good part of the law. I did not see anything in the law as I read through it that would allude to any home grows at all. I did not see any personal production allowed. I didn't see any provisions for caregivers or dispensaries or anything of the like. It looked to me mostly like a state-approved licensing facilities that would be eventually approved and built and up and running. In the meantime, it does allow people to possess cannabis that qualify for it medicinally, and it puts out the provisions for that amount. And I think they're pretty liberal with those amounts in comparison to other states. I think you could have up to 8 ounces at your home, up to 3 ounces on your person. So it allowed for edibles and concentrates, all forms of cannabis to be used. So overall, pretty good program. It's good that Oklahomans, how do you say that? Oklahomians?
I'd say Oklahomans, yeah. Oklahomians.
Okay. Yeah, it's good that they're finally getting some access down there. Certainly a ton of people down there need it, and they're no different than us, of course. Hardworking people down there. It's kind of like what they call the Bible Belt down there. I've driven through Oklahoma a few times. I got to say, it's incredibly boring. I mean, I'm using the word incredible a lot today, but I'm telling you, Oklahoma was like, it was worse than Indiana. It was just nothing but flat land and corn for like hundreds of miles. It just seemed like it took hours to get through Oklahoma every time we went through it. But
one of my ex-girlfriends lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And
yeah.
She lived in Minnesota, several places in Minnesota. She lived Midwest. And she loved Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I can't honestly say a lot about Oklahoma other than the fact I've driven through it, which really doesn't give you any knowledge of the place at all. So I don't mean to badmouth Oklahoma other than they were very tough on cannabis people in the past. I'll definitely say that. So it's good to see them get some relief down there. Folks get access. And it's also good to see the South opening up. Basically, the South has been sort of behind the times. Florida, sort of a little bit different of a picture there, not traditionally considered part of the South, if you will. And Florida has had medical marijuana, and they continue to expand their programs down there. But as far as states like Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, so on and so forth, these states here are starting now to hopefully catch the fire, if you will, and at least allow medical access to folks who need it down there.
I think Michigan's still got, in my opinion, what I've read and heard through your shows is that Florida's program compared to Michigan still has the better program, the better laws. That's
hands down.
Yeah,
hands down. Michigan really I think of Michigan as one of the, up until Oklahoma, and honestly, I can't really compare Oklahoma to Michigan either, because it's going to be a state-run dispensary or provisioning access, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be all state-approved, very tightly controlled. At any rate, but yeah, Michigan's law, when you compare it to the states that have passed medical marijuana since Michigan passed theirs, Michigan's laws are, I don't want to say more liberal, but they're more conducive to a small business environment, which we've seen this industry grow from, continue to flourish from, and really we've seen a lot of the other industries around the state get their ancillary business increase from this industry. And I mean, there's been no question to that. And when it's stifled by regulation and over control, you don't see that. It's places like Illinois where they have a medical marijuana program, but it's not really being utilized. There's just a few fat cats. Places like New Jersey is another one. But there's multiple states that I could name off where they do have medical marijuana laws. They're just not accessible. And not only do they not have an environment that creates businesses, but they don't even really have access. And states like New York would be another one, where you have literally millions of people out there that could potentially benefit from the use of medical marijuana, but the restrictions are so stringent that no one is really getting access, and really it's just reserved for a few extreme cases. And even in that instance, oftentimes you'll find that those patients have to go out of state or order something over the internet in order to actually get the cannabis product that it is that they're looking for. So yes, Michigan's program, even so, all the things that we've discussed about it in the past on this program, all that being said, Michigan's program is still a good program for patients and caregivers. So hopefully states like Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, they'll catch on, Georgia, catch the fire, guys. All right, it's time to get with the program. Quit making criminals out of sick people. All right, gonna move on here. And the other thing I wanted to talk about that was big news this last week, and we've been talking about this actually for a couple of years now. GW Pharmaceuticals, I think they're part of Bayer, just got approval last week, FDA approval for Epidiolex. This is their CBD-based product. From what I can see, currently it's going to be administered through a shot. But you can bet that will be administered through multiple different methods of dosage, so on and so forth. But at any rate, Epidiolex being a CBD product, it is approved, FDA approved, and it will be on the availability list, if you will, shortly through your pharmaceutical places. This is kind of big news because right now, currently, you have a lot of different products across the state. A lot of products are being shipped across the internet, so on and so forth, being sold at places that aren't considered medical, even, if you will, labeled as CBD products. And there seems to be a bit of a confusion in the law on where CBD stands. It seems that there's a potentially gray area created from a court ruling, and the attorney that's sort of bringing this to light is the attorney Jonathan Miller, who's the attorney for, check my source here again, I believe it's the USA Hemp. Let me find this thing here. Whoa. I'm gonna find it. Here it is. The U.S. Hemp Roundtable. Whatever that is. Anyways, this gentleman attorney, he fought in a court case, or at least anyways, he's reviewing a court case as the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a DEA rule defining any extract of cannabis sativa as a Schedule I controlled substance if it contains one or more cannabinoids. And that definition seemed to include CBD extract. That's the ruling. But on the other hand, this attorney is arguing and saying that this ruling does not leave CBD federally illegal. It actually, what it says is that, well, it's kind of interesting how they switch the language around here. It just basically says that, well, it doesn't say that it's not illegal, but it doesn't say that it's legal either. So there is definitely a gray area here, one of those attorney things, and I guess it depends on how much money you have, which side you can buy. But at any rate, CBD, definitely one of those gray areas. You're seeing this product being put out from around, really around the country. And the difference I think that most people are associating this with is that the CBD products that I'm referring to are hemp derived. So these are a part of a hemp product. It's a sister plant to cannabis. It traditionally does not contain THC. By law, the classification I think is 0.3% THC or less that the plant produces naturally. But it also produces CBDs as well. And so extracts made from hemp products containing CBD are what in fact we're talking about here. And whether or not they're legal, I guess, depends on your interpretation of this court ruling. At any rate, I think that if the FDA is approving Epidiolex for a major pharmaceutical company without needing to change anything in regards to our federal scheduling, especially cannabis, then there must be some type of an exception here. Mr. Miller must be correct. That's the only thing I could ascertain. Because it seems to me that if you needed to have an exception made for the CBD product legally, Bayer Pharmaceutical certainly would have that exception made, or they already did, or you'd have a rescheduling of the drug, or a clarification between THC and CBD, or a clarification of the Schedule I as marijuana being no longer applicable as a Schedule I drug in our federal drug scheduling, which is really what should be happening. But I think it does bring up an exception, and obviously Bayer Pharmaceutical or GW Pharmaceutical has no problem making that exception for themselves. And I think it was interesting that one of the comments that was quoted in a media source here, Leafly, I'm trying to see where the article is actually from here so I could share it with you guys. I guess it's the Associated Press, but at any rate, interesting the quote that they have from the DEA, who basically said, "Look, we're gonna go with what we're told to do, And if they come out and the FDA approves this as medicine, then we're absolutely going to change our ruling as far as on CBD. So it doesn't really spell out new policy or anything like that. It certainly doesn't change the law. It doesn't change federal drug scheduling. But here we are. This is where we are. And this is why we continue to have these large gray areas when it comes to cannabis law. It's ridiculous. I mean, on one hand, it's okay for somebody to do something, somebody else can't. It's just on and on and on it goes. We need to have clarity in cannabis.
I got a question. Maybe this is kind of unfair to ask you out of the blue, but I know that hops, the thing they put in beer is related to marijuana. They're cousins.
Cousin plant.
Now, does it have THC in it or any of the other compounds that would be found in marijuana?
I do not believe that hops contains cannabinoids.
Okay, I just wondered because I knew they're cousins, so that they might have had some kind of similar composition chemically.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
As far as I know, I don't think that I've never seen hops produce any type of resin on them. And I've never heard of any other plant other than cannabis sativa producing cannabinoids. Now, there may be other types of cannabinoids out there that I don't know, that I'm unaware of, that may be produced in other types of plants. But I don't know offhand, John. It's a good question.
No, yeah, because it's just like
the fact that your human body, any mammal produces endocannabinoids.
Right.
Maybe there's other plants out there that also produce other forms of cannabinoids as well.
I know people who eat sesame seed or poppy seed or something like that. Could be they do a drug test. They could be test positive for alkaloids, and which is consistent with the use of sometimes with cocaine use
or opioids
opioids. I have a hard time with that. But anyway, see, sometimes there's some things like mimic. Chemically.
Absolutely.
And, so I just wondered about that. So.
And I think that really, to me, when you mention something like that, I think more of it points to the fallacy of drug testing. There's a lot of people don't understand on the outside. If you've been in the cannabis industry or you've been around prison reform or anything like that, you can understand that when it comes to the actual science of drug testing, it is really not all that accurate. 50-50, maybe it's not quite that bad, but it can be bad. And we've discussed in the program here before, a lot of the hard drugs don't stay in your system more than 24 hours anyways. So that's the stuff that you really
what I have a big issue is you got these political opponents here against marijuana and stuff like that, or other drugs, and then they're also linked and have partnerships, and they're connected to corporations that do blood testing and stuff like urine testing for businesses and
stuff.
So
passing
that's what I have issues with.
Just like putting people in jail to keep our prisons full. It's kind of the same sort of thing. Why is that happening? It's not a good thing, obviously. All right, moving on here. I want to talk about some other items here. Another state that was brought up to the news, and I thought this kind of sucks, and it definitely sort of makes you realize Michigan isn't really all that bad. Arizona just had a court case go through their system, and their Court of Appeals ruled that cannabis extracts are illegal. And this is, Arizona's had a medical marijuana program now for, I want to say, since maybe 2004, for quite a while. They have an established dispensary system out there. Medical marijuana is available. So at any rate, they have this court case go through, and the Court of Appeals rules that cannabis extracts are illegal. The products that are in the state dispensaries are illegal. And what they're referring to is the law talking about hashish, or the resin extracted from marijuana. And it says here, of course, that would relate to other things called shatter, wax, booter, you name it. Anything that's a concentrate, really. The appeals court found a 2-1 decision. Arizona Medical Marijuana Act doesn't address hashish. It says here, the AMMA is silent as to hashish, wrote Judge John W. Thompson for the majority opinion. Prior understanding of the pertinent words strongly indicates that AMMA, which is their medical marijuana law, in no way immunizes the possession or use of hashish. The ruling affirmed, I'll cut through the chase here. The ruling affirmed the conviction of Rodney Jones for possessing a small amount of hashish in a jar, yet Jones was a valid card-holding patient when he was arrested in 2013. He served 366 days in prison because of this. 2010 law defines usable marijuana as dried flowers of the marijuana plant and any mixture or preparation thereof, but does not include the seed, the stalks, and the roots of the plant. Does that sound familiar? It's almost the same definition we have here in the state of Michigan, almost word for word, probably written by the same attorney. So there you go. Their law has been around since 2010. I was wrong. It wasn't 04, it was 2010. But at any rate, there's their definition, usable marijuana. Their stores that they're state approved for and dispense state approved products, essentially, since their dispensary is state approved, concentrates. And now the court comes back around and says, well, because the law doesn't address hashish, all of these concentrates are illegal. That's preposterous. I mean, I guess on one hand you could say, now you can see Michigan isn't the state that has, the only state that has crazy decisions made by our judges. Arizona has their fair share as well, obviously. Now, the interesting thing is most of these stores are not pulling their products off the shelf. They're not doing a doggone thing differently, and they're going to wait and see how this goes, and they're assuming it is going to go to the state Supreme Court. So that's probably where it will head, and we'll probably be talking about this in another year or two down the road. In the interim, obviously, patients, dispensaries, so on and so forth in Arizona possessing concentrates put themselves at risk with this type of ruling. And of course, the gentleman who spent 366 days in jail for possessing what he thought was a legal product for medicinal purposes, you can't put that year back on the clock for him. So, wow, what a crappy deal there. Screw Arizona judges. That's absolutely preposterous. I mean, quite clearly in the definition there, it says any usable mixture or preparation thereof. What else do you think that's supposed to mean? I mean, good grief. All right, moving on here. Arizona sucks. Don't take your concentrate to Arizona. Other stories I wanted to share with you. Michigan tax. We talked quite a bit about tax last week. I don't want to get too bogged down in tax this week, but I thought this article was interesting, and it's on MLive, and it says that, the headline anyways, says Michigan's tax on recreational marijuana would be among the lowest in the nation, as if we should be taxing it more or something. I'm not going to get into that, but it does put some figures out here as a comparison, and I thought that was kind of nice, at least so you could make your own deductions. But you have 6% sales tax for Michigan plus a 10% excise tax will be added on top for your recreational marijuana. Don't forget, medical marijuana patients will be paying a 3% excise tax in addition to their 6% tax. So medical patients are paying in Michigan. That's already a done deal. And if should recreational pass, recreational folks will be paying a fee, 10% as well. So in comparison, Alaska has a flat $50 per ounce fee. I'm sure it's probably broken down if you buy less, but you're going to pay at least $50 per ounce tax there. California, a 15% sales tax. We're not comparing sales tax here, so let's just get to the meat of it. The tax they place is $9.25 per ounce of flour. So as no bearing on the price of the flour, it's simply by weight. $2.75 per ounce of leaves. And of course, they have local taxes as well. So California, a little bit different there based on your weight and material. Colorado, they have a 15% excise tax in comparison to our 10%. Maine is a 20% tax. However, they do not have sales tax, I believe. Massachusetts, 6.25% excise tax, and up to 3% local tax. So they have a sales tax of 10.75. Again, we're not comparing sales taxes, and also a possible local tax. So at any rate, 6.25 compared to our 10. 15% in Nevada, Oregon here, it says 17% sales tax up to 3%. So I don't know what the sales tax in Oregon is normally, but there you go. Vermont, no retail sales. And Washington, 37% sales tax. So obviously Washington's got a pretty high percentage there at 37%. But I don't think it's fair really to say that Michigan's the rock bottom either at 10%. Some of these states here have just flat excise fees. Some have flat sales tax fees. Sometimes, in some cases, as like with Massachusetts, their excise fee is 6.25% compared to our 10. Considerably, theirs is lower. So, at any rate, remind yourself that this tax that we'll be collecting, the 10%, will be in addition to all of the fees that the state will be charging for licensing those facilities, including application fees, annual renewal license fees, additional background check fees, so on and so forth. I'm sure they'll also be paying local licensing fees in addition to those as well, which are not calculated into the excise taxes that we just mentioned. So, at any rate, the state's certainly going to be getting their fair share any way you look at it, and death and taxes, those are certain, right? Okay, let's see here. Canada, June 21st. Legalize recreational weed, first industrial nation to do so. I know we talked about this briefly, but props to Canada for getting it done. Did they do it the right way? There's a lot of debate on that. A lot of folks feel like it's big corporate cannabis taking over. There are many companies out there that are multi-million-dollar companies that are really digging down into this business, doubling down, if you will. They've already put in multi-million-dollar facilities, and they're building more. One of the ones we talked about is not too far away, actually, in Hershey's old factory right up in Ontario. And there's another one over in, I believe it's in Alberta, known as Canopy. Canopy Growth, I believe. But there's quite a few large companies. And in addition to this, I think I also mentioned last week, Canada now being one of the major industrialized nations, probably the only industrialized nation to be exporting cannabis as a product. We're not talking about hemp. They've been doing that for a while, and that's $1 billion industry. We're talking about actual cannabis export. They're doing that. So now they've taken the next step as of June 21st, first day of summer. Nice way to begin off the summer there up in Canada. It's legal, it's recreational. They expect to have their stores open, stocked, if you will, program up and running by mid-October. So we have yet to see. And again, like I said, it is still controversial. I know small growers up there don't have an opportunity, feel like they're getting squashed. Same thing with a lot of small business owners, small dispensaries up there that aren't getting the licensure that they would like to receive, instead being treated like criminals. I'm a fan of Jody Emery, and she posts regularly about some of the mistreatments that are going on up there in relation to some of the small businesses that have been, up and running legitimately, approved in their area, accepted by their communities, and having the government come in and shut them down, really essentially to make way for somebody else to come in and do the same thing. And I'm not a fan of that, whether it be in Michigan or Canada. Doesn't matter. I think it's wrong. But at any rate, that's what's up with Canada. One more thing I want to share with you guys. Find it on here. Make sure I'm not missing anything now. All right. This was a little bit off topic, not necessarily cannabis related. I think we've talked about it before on the program here. But obviously the big proposal in November for most of us that we're going to be thinking about is the one to legalize cannabis for recreational purposes. The other one that is going to be on the ballot that you're going to need to make a decision about is whether or not to allow us as the voters, essentially, to make the decisions, or to have at least a part of making the decision in where our elected areas are. Okay, so when it comes to who represents us, what that boundary line looks like, and what area that is. In other words, selecting the district, okay, the district for how you're represented at the state level with your state senator and your state representative. For instance, right now, I'm in the 48th district, the one that Eric Gunnels is running for state representative for. It's the same district that Genesee County Compassion Club is in. It's the same one that runs across the top of Genesee County. That particular boundary was determined by some of the legislatures in your state legislature, and the determination of that, the picking of that demographic area or that geographical area, oftentimes is really done very carefully, and it's done in order to make sure that a certain group of voters is represented and that another group of voters might not have as quite a good a chance at getting their representation in. And the process here is known as gerrymandering. It's a pretty basic political tactic that's been used for hundreds of years, basically, in order to really manipulate control in certain areas and sort of have dominance of a political party, if you will. I really think that the people are best represented by the people. It's just that simple. So, in other words, no, I don't think that our legislature should have the ability to remap their district and sort of move the boundary lines to more suit their voter block or the voting block they'd like to have. In other words, to be able to ensure future voting, generations or whatever stay blue or red, whatever it is their goal is. We're going to try to take that right away from the legislature and give it to the people. And I think that's a good idea. So I'd recommend that you read this ballot proposal. And here's another reason why you might be interested in it. So this is why I'm bringing it up. Everybody knows probably how most of us medical marijuana patients and caregivers in Michigan feel about our current Attorney General, Bill Schuette, who is now candidate for governor. Mr. Schuette is currently seeking to stop this proposal that I've been talking about, and basically feels that, it says, according to his quote, the proposal at issue here makes numerous changes that after the fundamental division of powers within our government, it provides or proposes a revision, not a mere amendment, and therefore it cannot be accomplished through the petition process. Mr. Schuette, the Board of Canvassers approved this ballot language. Apparently they felt it was okay to give that decision to the people. And I'm in favor personally, and I think most of our constituency here in Michigan is in favor of being able to make their own decisions. Certainly this would be one of them. So these guys went out, they collected signatures to get this on the ballot, 425,000 signatures they collected. The group is called Voters, Not Politicians. And basically the proposal would create an independent redistricting commission to redraw the congressional and legislative maps every 10 years. Currently, Michigan lawmakers redraw their boundaries each decade after the U.S. Census count in a process that some critics claim allows the majority political party to gerrymander districts for political benefit. And I would agree that it does. So this would take that out of their hands. It would draw up a commission that would take care of that process. It would continue to happen every 10 years. And I think it's a good idea. And why would the Attorney General, why would he try to dismantle something like this? Clearly, he has an interest in keeping things the way they are. They're working well for him and his party constituents. And I think anytime we can take more power out of the government's hands and give it to the people, that's a positive thing. So, all right, I'll end the show on that. That's basically it. So, guys, appreciate you being with me this week, and I hope you have happy cannabis growing times in the meantime. Good meds to all of you, all right? And thanks for being with me on the Genesee County Compassion Club show and here at allpointstv.com. John, thanks for being with me in the studio. Appreciate it. Go out, enjoy the rain before the heat comes, and enjoy your summer. Thanks, guys. See ya.